Waking Up from the Scientology Trance, Part 2. Cognitive Dissonance versus Moral Dissonance, and the Related Coping Mechanisms for Dealing with Undue Influence. As explained in Part 1 of this series, Scientology is a closed belief system that exerts an undue influence over the cognitive processes of its followers. This influence is instilled in cult members through coercive persuasion and various thought reform techniques. The classic thought reform model of Dr. Margaret Thaler was defined in 1995 as a system of coercive tactics that reprograms the way a person thinks. These tactics rely on 6 conditions for optimal success: isolation, creation of a siege mentality, dependency, powerlessness, fear and vulnerability, along with the victim being kept unaware of what is happening to them. Scientology's applied philosophy excels at creating an environment where all these conditions are firmly in place. Breaking free from the coercive persuasion in such an environment is no easy task, and requires changing how a person thinks and reacts to dissonance. The diagram featured in Part 1 focused on the role cognitive dissonance plays in the process of changing how a person thinks by changing their system of beliefs. The diagram featured in this presentation focuses on 2 different variations of dissonance, cognitive and moral, along with the coping mechanisms a cult member commonly uses to reduce or eliminate the uncomfortable feelings dissonance causes. Understanding the different reactions caused by cognitive dissonance and moral dissonance can help those who have loved ones trapped in the bubble of Scientology's influence to break free from the coercive tactics that are used to control them. Cognitive studies terminology. Cognition, any knowledge, opinion, or belief about the environment, about oneself, or about one's behavior. Dissonance generically refers to the tensions that individuals experience because of their choices. Cognitive dissonance, a condition that happens when someone realizes they're holding 2 inconsistent thoughts in their mind at the same time. This can happen when a person experiences new events or information that doesn't match with an existing knowledge, opinion or cognition concerning a behavior. Studies have shown that cognitive dissonance is a motivational, pre-decision state. It is felt as a psychological discomfort or unpleasant emotion, and eventually drives individuals to reduce dissonance. Moral dissonance, a form of cognitive dissonance that is a post-decisional state, which occurs when an individual feels obligated to abide by standard yet his or her preferences steer one away from these objectives. Dissonance reduction mechanisms, when a person changes their attitude or perspective to lessen the effects of dissonance. Dissonance elimination mechanisms, when a person changes their attitude and behavior to remove themselves from the effects of dissonance. Undue influence, when people use their role and power to exploit the trust, dependency, and fear of others. They use this power to deceptively gain control over the decision-making of the second person. In this model, cognitive dissonance is defined as a pre-decisional state that impacts the way a person thinks. Alternatively, moral dissonance is defined as a post-decisional state that impacts the way a person behaves. Not all social scientists make this distinction between these 2 types of dissonance. Conversationally, the term cognitive dissonance is used to refer to both types of dissonance. The differences highlighted in this presentation are primarily drawn from a 1998 social theory textbook chapter entitled Social Mechanisms of Dissonance Reduction by Tim McEwan. Understanding how dissonance can change a person's attitude versus changing their behavior.
Imagine you're a little kid. Your parents tell you to stay away from kids with blue eyes because they're bad. So you believe your parents. You're a little kid, your parents tell you something, you believe in them. You eventually run into kids with blue eyes, you eventually talk to them and interact with them and even play with them. And you realize that, wait a minute, kids with blue eyes really aren't that bad. They're just like I am. But you remember that your parents said kids with blue eyes are bad. So what you're experiencing is something called cognitive dissonance. You have 2 different cognitions, competing cognitions. One that tells you kids with blue eyes are bad. The other one that tells you kids with blue eyes aren't that bad. What do? Well, you have a couple choices. You could change your behavior, meaning that you could start playing with the kids and interacting with them more, or you could change your attitude. Now, unfortunately, because you're just a kid and you have to listen to your parents who tell you you cannot play with kids with blue eyes, you change your attitude. You change your attitude by insisting that kids with blue eyes are somehow bad. We tend to change our beliefs and our attitudes to match our behavior, as motivated by this drive called dissonance. We do this when we hold 2 conflicting cognitions. In 1959, a study was conducted by Leon Festinger and James Carlsmith. 71 students enrolled in an introductory psychology course at Stanford University participated in what was called, or at least advertised, as an experiment dealing with measurement of performance. The subjects were told that they might be asked a few questions at the end of the experiment in order just to help evaluate the experiments. Phase 1 of the experiment consisted of tasks. The subjects were brought into a room where they had a tray of wooden spools, and they had to move the spools from one tray to another tray, and then back again to the other tray. And if that weren't bad enough, then they had another task where they just turned things like 90 degrees and then turned them back. What the experimenters were trying to do is come up with the most boring task possible that nobody in their right mind could possibly find enjoyable. The experimenter tells the student that generally there are two different groups. In the other group, what somebody does, a confederate, is tells the student coming in to do the experiment how fun the tasks are and how great they are and exciting they are. Now this is where the real experiment diverges into three different groups. In the first control group, they simply tell them that little story about the confederate, how they tell them how exciting it is, and then they move them out of the room where they fill out an evaluation. Now the second and third groups get interesting. What the experimenter tells the people in the second and the third group is the same story. They say, look, really sorry, I'm embarrassed to ask you this, but the student that we have that normally tells the other student how exciting this experiment is, well, they couldn't make it. What we would love to do is have you fill that role for us and tell the other student coming in, which is actually a confederate, tell that student how exciting these tasks are and how great they are. Now, with the two different groups, in one group, they say, we'll give you $1 if you do this for us. The other group, they said, we'll give you $20 if you do this for us. Now, virtually all of the students agreed to this, with the exception of about 11 who, for various reasons, were excluded from the study. So we're down to 60 people, 20 in each group, 20 in the control group, 20 in the $1 condition, and 20 in the $20 condition. Do you think that the people who were paid more would be more excited about it and tend to really find it more exciting? Or do you think the people that were paid only $1 would find it more exciting? Well, after they finished telling the other student how exciting and fun the tasks were, they went into another room where they filled out an evaluation of the actual tasks that asked them how exciting did they really find the tasks. First, let's look at the control condition. Remember, the control group were the 20 students who didn't have to tell another student anything. They did not have to lie. So what they were doing is basically they were just reporting their true feelings about the experiment. On a scale from -5 being the worst ever to +5 being incredibly fun, they filled it out at an average of -0.45, so just below 0. Now what about the group in the $20 condition? This was the group of students that were paid $20 to lie, essentially. They had to tell the other student how fun and exciting they found it when they really didn't find the tasks fun or exciting at all. This group did not differ significantly from the control group in their ratings. On a scale from -5 to +5, they rated the tasks at -0.05, which is very close, a little bit better than the control group, but essentially the same. This group was said to experience no cognitive dissonance whatsoever. They didn't have two conflicting cognitions. They had one cognition that said that the task was incredibly boring, and they maintained that, and they were justifying their lie by the amount of money that they were getting paid. So now let's look at the $1 condition. Remember, the $1 condition were the students that were paid $1, that's it, just $1, to tell this lie that they really enjoyed the tasks. Well, on the scale from -5 to +5, they rated it +1.35. That's significantly greater than both of the groups. This could be explained with cognitive dissonance theory. Basically what was going on here was they had two different cognitions. The first cognition told them that the task was incredibly boring. The second cognition told them that they were telling somebody else that the task was incredibly fun and exciting. Well, they couldn't write that off as just getting paid for it, So what they did is they actually changed their attitude, which led to evening out that dissonance. Now, cognitive dissonance theory did not go unchallenged. It was only about 10 years later when self-perception theory came out as an alternative hypothesis to what is going on. Self-perception theory takes a more behaviorist approach and looks at the behavior, and it doesn't infer that something's going on in the cognition. It doesn't infer any kind of motivating force like a dissonance. Today, most psychologists accept that both theories are equally as valid and have use in their own domains. However, cognitive dissonance is still very popular, especially when people have very strongly held beliefs. You probably know many people that have these very strongly held beliefs, and in spite of any evidence to the contrary, they refuse to accept that evidence. What they do instead is change their attitude toward the evidence, and sometimes even toward science. If you know somebody like that, send them here and make them watch this video.
Understanding undue influence. An exercise in wordplay, brainwashing, mind control, coercive persuasion, or undue influence. These are all various terms that have been used to denote the thought reform techniques which cults use to manipulate their followers when used in the context of a general discussion on destructive groups. Undue influence is probably the least misleading of the various terms which have been used to label the manipulative techniques used by cults. The problem is that these techniques are quite clever and subtle, and very difficult to explain satisfactorily to anyone who has not personally experienced being in a cult. Additionally, undue influence also carries the following legal definition in regards to pursuing remedies for coercive tactics in a court of law: influence by which a person is induced to act otherwise than by their own free will or without adequate attention to the consequences. This legal definition limits the concept of undue influence to cases where there is a specific legal contract involving the transfer of money or property from one party to another. But, if it is legally accepted that a person can have sufficient undue influence or power over another to persuade them into a disadvantageous contract, it does not seem an unreasonable extension to say that this same undue influence could extend over other areas of a person's life, to the extent that, in some cases, they leave their family and job and end up working full-time for the organization, effectively becoming servants of the group. For more information, see Stephen Hassan's How Big is the Phenomenon of Undue Influence video on Vimeo. Dr. Margaret Singer's 6 Conditions for Thought Reform. Number 1. Isolation. Keep the person unaware of what is going on and how she or he is being changed one step at a time. Potential new members are led, step by step, through a behavioral change program without being aware of the final agenda or full content of the group. The goal may be to make them useful agents for the leadership, to get them to buy more courses, or get them to make a deeper commitment, depending on the leader's aim and desires. Number 2. Siege mentality. Control the person's social and/or physical environment, especially control the person's time. Through various methods, new members are kept busy and led to think about the group and its content during as much of their waking time as possible. Number 3. Dependency. Systematically create a sense of powerlessness in the person. This is accomplished by getting members away from the normal social support group for a period of time and into an environment where the majority of people are already group members. The members serve as models of the attitudes and behaviors of the group and speak an in-group language. Number 4. Powerlessness. Manipulate a system of rewards, punishments and experiences in such a way as to inhibit behavior that reflects the person's former social identity. Manipulation of experiences can be accomplished through various methods of trance induction, including leaders using such techniques as paced speaking patterns, guided imagery, chanting, long prayer sessions or lectures, and lengthy meditation sessions. Number 5. Fear and vulnerability. Manipulate a system of rewards, punishments, and experiences in order to promote learning the group's ideology or belief system and group-approved behaviors. Good behavior, demonstrating an understanding and acceptance of the group's beliefs and compliance are rewarded, while questioning, expressing doubts, or criticizing are met with disapproval, redress and possible rejection. If one expresses a question, he or she is made to feel that there is something inherently wrong with them to be questioning. Number 6. Oblivion. Put forth a closed system of logic and an authoritarian structure that permits no feedback and refuses to be modified except by leadership approval or executive order. The group has a top-down, pyramid structure. The leaders must have verbal ways of never losing. Scientology's closed belief system directly mirrors Singer's cult model for thought reform. This is why it is so easy for parishioners to get stuck in the bubble of undue influence, and often find it hard to break free of the conditioned way of thinking. Deconstructing the Scientology bubble. Cognitive dissonance is felt prior to decisions being made, and is triggered by statements of new information that conflict with existing ideas, beliefs or cognitions that are deemed to be true. Reduction mechanisms typically used by cult members to eliminate the psychological discomfort cognitive dissonance causes include avoidance, confrontation, and internalization. Avoidance mechanisms for reducing or eliminating cognitive dissonance typically include denial and trivialization, information blocking and filtering, along with moral disengagement of one's conscience. Confrontation mechanisms for reducing or eliminating cognitive dissonance typically include information distortion and misattribution, mindset and perspective adjustments, along with selective hypocrisy. Internalization mechanisms for reducing or eliminating cognitive dissonance typically include motivated forgetting, preference falsification, and suppression of emotions. When these mechanisms are used as means of dealing with cognitive dissonance, the effect is the application of thought-stopping techniques, rather than confronting the statement that triggered their psychological discomfort and thinking it through logically. Cult members in a closed belief system are conditioned to block out uncomfortable thoughts using these tactics. Moral dissonance is felt after decisions are made, and is triggered by questions raised about choices made or actions taken that conflict with someone's existing standards, beliefs or opinions that are deemed virtuous. Reduction mechanisms typically used by cult members to eliminate the unpleasant emotions moral dissonance causes include rationalization, redemption, and moral reconstruction. Rationalization mechanisms for reducing or eliminating moral dissonance typically include selective reasoning while using biased assumptions, self-affirmations and overconfidence, self-concept adjustments and concessions, and self-justification while using defendable excuses. Redemption mechanisms for reducing or eliminating moral dissonance typically include problem identification and change outreach, personal activism or advocacy, and actions to alleviate guilt or make amends. Moral reconstruction mechanisms for reducing or eliminating moral dissonance typically include collective action in the form of group activism and advocacy that strives for problem resolution and worldview transformation. Conflict removal in the form of transcendence of personal philosophy that attempts to achieve a simplification of goals or values, along with the compartmentalization of beliefs and disbeliefs. A reinterpretation of beliefs that includes adjusting the ranking of goals and objectives, in addition to discarding or replacing values and standards. This ultimately serves as a redefinition of one's personal belief system. When these mechanisms are used as a means of dealing with moral dissonance, the effect is the introduction of behavior-changing techniques. These tactics are a positive indicator that a person is confronting questions that arose after certain decisions or actions triggered an internal conflict related to their own personal integrity and caused them unpleasant emotions. Cult members in a closed belief system are conditioned to not raise questions, nor point out contradictions that are contrary to their beliefs. Once they do begin questioning things, the process of waking up from the spell of undue influence can begin. Additionally, Scientology ethics and PTS tech has built-in handling that is triggered when members begin to ask the wrong questions. This handling can help to drive a person out of the bubble of cult influence. Therefore, when some is trying to help a loved one wake up from the Scientology trance, the important thing to remember is to opt for thought-provoking questions rather than using statements that trigger thought-stopping responses. This effectively allows moral dissonance to be a good thing, as opposed to cognitive dissonance being a bad thing that causes a cult member to shut down and tune out. Examples of helpful questions that can be used to push Scientology practitioners towards confronting the situation they are trapped in will be covered in part 3 of this series. The long-term effect of employing the various tactics for reducing or eliminating cognitive and moral dissonance is that many of those techniques stop working after a while. When a cult member can no longer rely on thought-stopping or minor behavior-changing adjustments to bypass the psychological discomfort dissonance causes, other response mechanisms begin to kick in. These alternative dissonance reduction mechanisms typically include expressing emotions, transference, and separation. Emotional outburst mechanisms for reducing or eliminating the cumulative effects of dissonance typically include openly acknowledging negative feelings that are causing them discomfort, discussing upsets and disappointments while recognizing that contradictions in their system of beliefs exist, voicing frustrations, outrage and anger at situations they can no longer handle. Transference mechanisms for reducing or eliminating the cumulative effects of dissonance typically include assuming new responsibilities by becoming actively involved in new endeavors, creating diversions through blame and attention shifting, and the fabrication of false excuses. Separation mechanisms for reducing or eliminating the cumulative effects of dissonance typically include changes to one's system of beliefs and disbeliefs, behavior, personality and environment adjustments, social segmentation, and attempting to achieve a fresh start or new lease on life. When these mechanisms are used as a last resort means of dealing with the cumulative effect of dissonance, the result is a gradual change in someone's perspective and cognitions related to the issues causing them discomfort. These tactics are another positive indicator that a cult member is beginning to recognize that something is not quite right in their view of reality. This is also a sign that their cognitive processes are changing, which may eventually lead them into waking up from the undue influence they have been exposed to. Waking up from the Scientology trance is not an easy process. When friends and family are looking for a way to help a loved one break free from the group's undue influence, it is important to realize that cult intervention is not something that can be accomplished in a single day or by strictly using confrontational deprogramming tactics. Proper cult intervention often requires specialized knowledge and professional experience to unravel the various defense mechanisms covered in this diagram over a period of time. Some cult members will eventually begin to drift out of the bubble of Scientology's influence as a natural result of negative experiences. Others will simply become stuck inside in the bubble, in limbo, unless they are forced to deal with situations that cause them dissonance. For more information, please see the free book from RCS titled Coping with Cult Involvement, a handbook for families and friends by Livy Budin that is listed below under primary references. Undue influence in Scientology's closed system of beliefs. The key tenet, what is true for you is true, is a logical fallacy. This subjective standard for religious truths should be applied unconditionally, while supporting the inverse concept of what is not true for you is not true, with no penalty or restriction on disbelief. Unfortunately, several layers of undue influence that are reinforced by various control mechanisms basically discourage and forbid this form of cognitive flexibility. This creates a situation doomed to cause a great deal of both forms of dissonance, thus leading to so many parishioners having upsets and dark breaks with the organization that eventually drive them away.